Hello, Kingston, Keegan, Dill, and Sprunger clan. This is Papa K. As you know, I've been telling you guys that I've been thinking about recording myself making all of Grammy's recipes. They're all written down, but what I've learned as I got into it is there's so much nuance about what you're making that it really can't be captured at all on a piece of paper, so you have to do it. And I actually found that it takes me 3 times making something to get a recipe right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to film myself making these Grammy's recipes. I'm going to show you the results, good, bad, or indifferent, and then give you some idea of what to do next time to make it better, and then you're on your own on the recipe. Go figure it out from there. But I want these videos to be, I'm going to be uploading them on YouTube, and I want them to be available for future generations that want to learn how to cook Grammy's recipes. Anyway, in the meantime, as some of you know, probably Barb and Kath and Fran are tired of hearing about it, but anybody is. But I've been threatening about writing a book forever. And I've been just writing stuff down and taking notes for years and years and years. And I finally decided to do it, and I wrote some stuff down, and I sent it off to a friend of mine, Charlie Fleedham, who has written a couple books. And he basically said, listen, you got some good stuff here, but you should really make a video, because this generation and the generation you want to be talking to after that probably won't be reading much, they'll be watching. So I'm going to be making what I hope is 3 30-minute videos where I share my experiences on Earth for 7 decades, and more importantly, the lessons I learned from those experiences, and the hope is that someone in a future generation, maybe someone listening to this the day I post it, here's something that helps them when they're making difficult decisions or faced with challenges. Maybe they see that I'd faced that challenge, or I had to make that decision, and my going back and showing them the result and consequences of those decisions can help them as they make theirs. So I hope if it helps one person in the family, I would have done my job. I'm not preaching to anybody. I'm not telling anybody how to live their lives. Everybody's got to make their own decisions. I just want to provide information that you can use as you work through your life. I want to start out, before I get into the meat of it, I want to dedicate it to Dot and Pat, Mom and Dad. They're the foundation of this family. None of us would be here without them. I'm now the patriarch of the family, and I feel an obligation, to share this information and to honor Dot and Pat. They taught what I think are the most important lessons about honesty, integrity, work ethic, and sheer will. I think the lesson that I learned from Pat, interestingly enough, was osmosis. And what I mean by osmosis is, if you ever watched a Charlie Brown episode, when adults talk, they make the noise wah 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 wah. That's what the kids hear when the adults talk. Well, that's what I heard when my dad talked, or what I thought I heard when my dad talked. But what I found out, that his talk was permeating me through osmosis, that I was learning these lessons without even knowing it, and that at some point in my life down the road, when a situation occurred, the lesson popped into my head, and I said, oh yeah, Dad, thanks, right? That's what osmosis is for me. That's what Pat taught me. So what is this overall theme here? What are we going to talk about? And for me, the number one thing that in life that we should all be pursuing is happiness. If we're not pursuing happiness every day, then we're wasting our time. What are we doing? So I want to talk about what that really means. What is true happiness? Um, because we have a finite number of days that we live on this planet. Finite. Okay, the average American adult lives to 77 years old. You do the math. Okay, it comes to an end, and so if we waste any of those days being unhappy, then it's a shame. Now, I'll get back to the days. There's more on that, but I want to get to what kind of drove me a little bit on this. Lately, I've been asking a lot of people, mostly younger people, what do you want from your life? What do you want out of your life? And the consensus answer I get is, I just want to be happy. Perfect. That should be the number one goal. But then I ask the next question. What does that look like? What is it? What does happiness mean to you? And almost 100% I get a deer in the headlight look back. I get just, they say, I don't know. I'm not sure. They don't have an idea. And so if we can't define it, how do we achieve it? In anything in life, if you can't define what you're going after, how do you know when you get there? But I love cliches like, I just want to be happy. We hear hundreds of these cliches in our life, but really all they are is clues. They're clues to really important thoughts, but they're just the surface of that thought. And we have to do the work to get to the depth of the thought. And it's one of the challenges I think we have in society today is we skim the top of everything. We're 2-minute people, right? We watch a 2-minute video or a 2-minute soundbite or whatever it is, and we're on to the next thing. And so we go wide but not deep. But in order to find your true happiness, you got to go deep. It's the only way it can happen. You got to do the work. So I'll use a personal experience here to give you an example of how I did the work. So, I'm not as a brag, but just as a point of information for the story is I was a highly successful pioneer in the technology industry at a very young age. At 37, I was the youngest division president in a Fortune 500 company, and I met all my financial goals by the time I was 38, 39 years old. I had done everything I thought that I had wanted to accomplish financially and in my life, thus in my life. But I was miserable. And it wasn't, anything to do with family or anything like that. I just didn't like the environment that I was in. I didn't know that at the time. Eventually it came clear to me, but why I was miserable, and I was miserable. I should have been happy, and so I just started asking myself why. What's causing this unhappiness? What are you doing when you're unhappy? And I started doing an inventory of when I was happy. What was I doing when I was happy? Who was I with? What did we talk about? Where did we go when I was happy? And I came to the conclusion I was truly happy when I was out in nature with my family, when I was in the outdoors with them, fishing or hiking or camping or whatever it was. I experienced true joy, true happiness. There was no burden on me. And again, I'll get back to the burden and some of the stuff I'm going to come back to in detail. But the things that we do that make us unhappy also provide this burden on us, which is stress. And stress, along with greed, are the two most powerful forces on the planet. And they will affect you. They will affect how you think. They will affect how you feel. And so when I was at my truly happy state, those things weren't a part of my thought process at those times. So I thought, okay, well, now I know, what makes me happy, and I started thinking about how much time I spent. So I went and started doing the math of how much time do I spend on a daily basis, daily, hourly. I broke it down to that detail, doing the things that I loved and made me happy versus doing the things that I didn't love. And it was 95% of my time I was doing the thing that I didn't love. Only 5% of my life was I in my happy stage. And I just, that was wrong. I decided that was wrong, and I needed to flip that, um, flip those numbers, and I set about it. But another, easier said than done. There are a number of things that I'll get to in session 2 that impact your ability to do that. And first and foremost, in our society, there is a certain amount of money you need to survive. I don't care if live in a, studio apartment and, pay $400 a month in rent and whatever. There is a minimum that you have to achieve to be able to survive in this country and in this world. It's an unfortunate thing, but it's the truth. And so you have to, there has to be an ability to still be realistic about your life while pursuing the happiness. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. So here's what I believe. I believe you cannot achieve true happiness if you don't know exactly who you are, right? I think if you don't know exactly who you are, you can't get in touch with the things that make you happy, so you have a hard time finding those things or doing those things out on your day-to-day basis to bring you happiness. And I think who you are is what I call your spirit. And I believe everybody has one, and I believe everyone was born with one. And I believe your spirit is, what you feel in your heart, what you believe in your head, and what your gut or conscience tells you on a day-to-day basis. Those are the things that form your spirit, and that spirit is what we have to make happy or becomes unhappy. And I think the key to happiness is knowing that spirit. When you're young, your parents need to know it or help you preserve it, and when you're older, you need to be conscious and aware of it during your decision-making process. So, as an infant, your spirit continues to form based on what's around you, your environment. As parents, up until the time our kids are about 6, we control everything in their environment. We control who they see, we control what they see, we control what information they hear, we control absolutely everything. And up until that point in life, our spirit is informed by that. And so if you were to ask a 6-year-old what they wanted to be in life, you would get an answer of fireman, policeman, athlete, movie star, nurse, right? Because those are the things that they see or been given contact to by us that say, these are good people. We read them stories about firemen. We show them cartoons and little things about animals and whatever. So that's what informs their life, and it's all pure. There's never, unless you're a rotten parent, there's never bad stuff that gets introduced. But the answer you never hear is they want to be a banker, they want to be a lawyer, they want to be a salesperson. You'll never hear that answer. And the reason why is they haven't been adulterated yet. For me, I wanted to be a forest ranger. When I was asked, that's what I wanted. Grandma was very smart. She had National Geographic come into the house when we were kids. I read about Jane Goodall and the other woman with the chimpanzees. That's old man's brain. But it struck a chord for me. And I would read those, look through the pictures, not read, look through the pictures of those National Geographics when I was very young. And I wanted to be a forest ranger. You know, that was my spirit, and it turned out to be true. As I got later in life, my true happiness came when I was out in nature with my family. So that initial instinct was true, and you just get sidetracked along the way. So it's incumbent upon parents to protect that spirit the best they can for the longest they can until the person can protect themselves. Okay? And at about 6 or 7 is where the real parenting kicks in. This is when outside influences emerge. You know, people like teachers, people like friends, people like parents of friends. Oh, what a shock. And they add or begin the adulteration process. They start adding information in there that you can't control, that you're not aware of, that can start formulating their thinking. And so this is where the parenting really has to kick in. You know, these adults are, you know, great for this. They'll introduce adult topics to children prematurely because they think they should. Well, no, they shouldn't. You know, and adult topics are, asking a 6-year-old, are you getting good grades? Or asking a 6-year-old, did you win the race? Or asking a 6-year-old, what are they going to buy when they get their allowance? Or asking a 6-year-old how many baseball cards they have. Those things adulterate children because they start thinking that they're important. If they're being asked, it must be important. So the parents, it's your one and only job, I believe, while the children are young, to protect their spirit. And I'll give you an example of how I believe we did that. You know, I hope we did. Oh, I hope we did that, right? First of all, we took the approach is we did not own our children. They're not our possessions to make into little versions of us. They're our responsibility, right? We're the stewards of their young lives. And the way we did it was, I was very conscious of wanting them to become who they were going to be in life, not biased by me. And so I looked at us like blow up bumpers at a kiddie bowling party. So you go to a kiddie bowling party, they blow up the bumpers, put them in the alleys, and so when the kids throw the balls down the lane, they don't go in the gutter. Nobody goes in the gutter. The ball hits a pin at least, and everybody's happy. Well, that's what the parent's job is until the kids are old enough to start making their own decisions. Kind of let them careen down the alley and figure out who they are, but just keep them out of the gutter. Keep them out of the gutter of bad things. Keep them out of the gutter of adulteration. Keep them moving forward in their life towards their goal, to knock over a few pins. So that's what parenting should be, you know. So hopefully, this is helpful. Again, I'm not trying to preach to anybody. We certainly made our mistakes, but that's what I learned later on in life, was that I at the end of the day, I really didn't control them in any way. All I could do was help them along and make sure they got what they needed and were nurtured and loved. And like a plant, I'm sorry, it sounds rude, but it's like a plant, you got to feed it and water it and give it love, right? And it'll grow. So parents, it's an absolute war until the children are 18. But it's a war that's got to be fought, right? It gives them their best shot at true happiness. It really does. So I'm going to stop here. It looks like it's about 20 minutes. That's not bad, Maybe I can keep someone's attention for that long. In session 2, I'll address some of the easier said than done's, or I'll get back to topics about the battle that we actually face, get into some detail what the battle actually is that we face every day when we're driving towards true happiness. So I decided that I was going to, the easiest way to do this is I'm going to post these videos on YouTube. And um, I call it Papa K, and the handle is Papa K Shows the Way. So I'll be sending all of you guys a link, but you'll always be able to find them on YouTube. As always, I got nothing but love for you, brothers. Talk to you.